When it comes to digital transformation, there's also one paradigm that's critical, and that's the investor paradigm. Investors want to understand more about what they should look at when they are investing in companies from a digital transformation perspective. So, how should really investors look at sectors or companies and really assess where they are on their digital transformation journey and thus get their investment decisions right?
As I said, let's go off the sector question because every sector is going to transform. Every sector will have startups. Every sector will go through change. Existing players will reinvent and some will die. So this is going to be across industries at large. But when you look at the characteristics of what company to invest in, our data tells us that we can classify companies into 5 different levels or stages of transformation. Number 1 is pre-digital, which is where about 40 to 50% companies still are. They still use fax machines, they still use voicemail, as an example. And then digital beginners, they started dabbling in things. Digitally progressive means 40 to 50% of their business has transformed and change is irreversible. That's the important point. The organization will not slide back to its old habits. And then come digitally advanced, right? And then finally, digitally converged, okay? Large parts of the auto industry are now getting into digitally advanced, but so many interior electronics and efficiency and all of those things, driver protection, driverless cars, etc., that they're getting there. Stage 5 is where the Microsofts and the Googles and Amazon and Flipkart and Baiju, as an example, already are, right? That is only about 5 to 10%. Now, how do you decipher where a company is and what its potential is to go in that direction? It goes back to the 5 factors that I described to you. The digital IQ of a company's leadership, right? The change in the value proposition of the company and how relevant it is and how sustainable it is and how reinventable it is, if you may. Number 3 is the use of technology in, revamping the value chain. And then number 4 is the investment that the company is making in training its employees. And underlying all of this is the management culture of the company. Do they understand the urgency, right? Are they complacent? How often does the company revamp its products or services, right? How quickly does it, invest in technology? How sticky are their customers? So these are the elements of the culture that can be measured. So what we do for clients is we benchmark them against their competitors, and then we use that data to help them, prioritize and then go in the right direction. And the same template can be used by investors as well. Now, the maturity of a company is not necessarily an indicator of whether or not you should invest in it. But these benchmarking techniques and these data-driven techniques then tell investors what's the quantum of effort that is involved in unlocking value in the company. There could be some very good companies whose management isn't geared up to think big picture, but there could be, diamonds in the rough that can be polished up.
Sri, you straddle East and West, Silicon Valley and India, right? And this book is also a lot about that. It's a global book. But when it comes to Indian CEOs and leaders, what is your core message when it comes to transformation?
Well, the first message is stop thinking that you're Indian CEOs and just think you are a CEO, right? And my second message is to be ambitious, right? As we were talking about Mumbai and how I've come here after a long time and the transformation that we're seeing here. To me, there are 3 classes of companies that are here in India. One is what I would call as the subsidiaries of global MNCs. The JP Morgans, the Toyotas, the Bank of Americas, the Walmarts and so on. The pace of their transformation is essentially dictated by what the parent is doing. So let's keep them to a side. But when you think about Indian domiciled companies, I see them in sort of 2 classes. One class is our traditional companies, the large conglomerates, who have been selling products left and right across the industry, but their focus is the Indian market, right? The second cluster is what I would call as the born digitals. the gaming companies, the media companies, the entertainment companies, the retail companies, the Flipkarts of the world, education as a sector. Now, these born digitals have proven that you can establish a world-class company out of India, you can expand globally, right? You can invest in technologies, and you can deliver great value, and you can add customers anywhere. My message, therefore, is going to be targeted towards CEOs of the traditional Indian houses to be even more ambitious and think outside of India, not restrict their competition to who they are facing in India, but the competition of the future. Think global standards and think investments into transforming the company. Jugaad is a very famous Indian word. It's now into management theory. But it came about when we were very heavily resource constrained and growth constrained and technology constrained. Those constraints don't exist anymore. And so you don't have to do Jugaad all the time. And Jugaad alone will not make you a global competitor. And so that is my message to CEOs here.
And finally, Sri, how has all the research and the experiences that you've really brought about in crossing the digital fault line, how has it helped Trianz from the perspective of how you help your clients with digital transformation and you personally as a CEO?
Well, to begin with, we took the baby steps of changing our portfolio and going from a broad array of services to become very, very focused exclusively into transformation-related work. So we do transformation strategies, benchmarking, roadmap development, etc. And then we walk with the clients in the actual technology implementation. So that's where these big paradigms come to life. Cloud, infrastructure services, transforming with analytics, modernizing applications, and so on, and then helping them secure the enterprise. But since I wrote the book and the reality stared in my face, you come to a point where you say, does this apply only to my clients or does this apply to us? It's a very deep question because the consulting and the tech industry tends to think patterns apply to clients and not to them, right? And so we pushed it even harder and we investigated what are the big challenges that our clients are facing today. And it comes down to three things, which is the gist of our discussion today. Number one is the urgency to transform. The competitive window is shrinking for every company. Number two is, and so therefore time. Number two is lack of capital. This requires massive capital, yet in the short term you have to satisfy investors on near-term returns. And so CEOs have to be very forthright in setting expectations correctly, right? And then number three is lack of resources, right? This country is the largest producer of technology resources in the world. And we are short by 4 to 5 times the resources that are required. Now, if you take these three big client challenges and you marry that against the fact that 70% of companies are yet to start transforming, now you imagine how much worse and tough this game is going to become. And so when we asked ourselves that question, we said we need to change what value we are bringing to our clients. And so therefore, in each of our practices, we have built platforms that accelerate our clients' transformations, that reduce the need for resources, manpower resources or women power resources, and are much less expensive than what the traditional approaches call for. So we built a digital workplace platform that changes the employee experience for our clients. We built analytics platforms in very close partnerships with various cloud providers and large companies that help us generate management analytics within months as opposed to years. And we have built a platform through which you can manage your cloud infrastructure, doesn't matter where it is, right, through a single pane of glass. And so our value proposition now isn't about delivering tech services through great people. It is about accelerating your transformation through platforms, which may need some services. And so the book and these findings essentially changed my view and we have worked very hard at bringing them to life.
Well, Sri, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. And given the unique perspective that you bring, I'm sure that we will see other books from you. I'm sure I would love to read them. I wish you continued success as you help companies across the world with digital transformation. And for viewers, you can get your copy of Crossing the Digital Faultline both in stores and online. Thank you so much for watching.